What common foods in your country are considered delicacies by foreigners? We had some Japanese exchange students at our university in the US, and when they saw the cubed melon on the salad bar, the standard watermelon, cantaloupe, honeydew mix, they thought we were living like royalty. Apparently melon is a really expensive, special occasion food over there. Hawaii has somehow turned Spam into a sought-after food, especially by visitors from Japan. It was supposed to be caviar, but now it's also unaffordable for us. Cries in Russian. A good baguette. I've seen American tourists walk out of a bakery with like 12 of them. Slow down dude, they are made all day long, you don't need that many. Avocados here in Mexico, pretty common and cheap. Water, our tap water is perfect and no local ever buys bottled. Iceland. Edit. A lot of people are mentioning the sulfur smell of the hot water, and that depends on the area. For example, where I live the hot water comes directly from a nearby hot spring area, so naturally it's gonna have a smell. Locals don't smell it though. For drinking water you just need to run the tap for a bit, that will get any hot water out of the pipes and bring you spring water. Thanks for the upvotes etc 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 heart. Stroopwafel. Good French pastries and stuff like croissant and pain au chocolat. We call them viennoiserie in French. No idea if there is a specific word for it in English. Obviously in France they are super easy to find in any bakery and they are cheaper. It's so common that honestly not a lot of people do go buy some croissants every day. Macarons are also relatively easy to find. Usually they are made in special shops but some bakery do make them. And #X200B. Edit. Oh, and if you go to France or go to a good French bakery in your country, try a Paris-Brest. You will not regret it. An Indian prepared bhaji on MasterChef Australia. Bhaji is available at every 5 blocks or so. The whole recipe is cut onion, potato, coat it with gram flour and spice and fry. Indians who saw that surely laughed. In South Indian states it is called bhaji. Kreiner wurst or carniolan sausage. Protected by EU for being Slovenian speciality that can only be made here but loved and eaten by millions of Germans and Austrians. Edit. It's the name that can't be used if made outside of Slovenia and sold commercially, not the actual sausage. Tim Tams. I worked for a charity in Iraq for a year and we'd buy a dozen lamb chops for the equivalent of $5. That's like $60 to buy in the US and it's worse quality. Do maple syrup or poutine count? I know at the least. In university I had a friend who came up from the US and thought poutine was the greatest thing ever. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised more of the US hasn't adopted it. Fries, cheese curds, and gravy, sounds more like an American thing. Not sure what other countries' opinions on it are. Fried chicken, it's actually become a special holiday meal in countries like Japan where you have to reserve your bucket weeks in advance. Mainly because of clever marketing. But here, people would laugh so hard at that, 'cause it's just fried chicken. Goji berries. We put that stuff in our soups and many people pick that out when they drink the soup. Jesus Christ, this entire thread is teaching me about cravings for food I've never even heard of or know how to pronounce correctly. Carry on everyone, I'll be right here salivating. Jamon serrano. Here in Spain is really common and you can find very good product for a very affordable price. Good. Olive oil. Englishman here, been scrolling for so long to find my country. Maybe some stereotypes are true. Piña coladas I guess. Here in PR you can get them absolutely everywhere with or without alcohol, it's mostly just a refreshing drink. People who got fired for the stupidest reason, what happened? I worked in a customer service call center for an insurance company. A customer called in and had a medical emergency, probably a heart attack, but I'm not sure, while I was on the phone with her. I used the phone in the empty cubicle next to me to call 911 and stayed on both lines to be sure that EMS got to her. I was fired because A. I took too long on calls already and this was exceptionally long, B. I made an unauthorized outgoing call, and C. I gave the customer's personal information, name and address, out to the 911 operator. I was driving cars for a shady dealer. Under the table while I was laid off from my real job. Got a call that my uncle had attempted suicide and was in a psychiatric ward in a local hospital and wouldn't talk to anybody else but me. Told boss I had to roll. He said something like, "Your job comes before family. If you leave, don't come back." I left. The next morning he called and asked me why I wasn't at work. I hung up on him. My first job ever was as a dishwasher. I was so proud. I was 18. Of course, my parents didn't believe me, so my mom called them and asked them if it was true. They fired me that night because they felt I was unreliable. I have yet to let my folks live that one down. I was fired for playing solitaire on my 15 minutes break when I was working as a receptionist. The doctor who owned the clinic was dumb enough to put that as the reason in my termination letter. I collected unemployment after he tried to appeal it. They explained in great detail how stupid of a reason this was for termination. Accepted job and notified them I would need X date off for my sister's wedding, 2 months after the start date. Came back from my sister's wedding and shit hit the fan while I was gone. Not my responsibility, but my name was on some of the changes in the document. Canned that day for not being there when they needed me. I got fired from my first ever job as a CIT, counselor in training, at the summer day camp one went to every year as a kid. I was given the 6/7-year-olds. One of them asked me if I had a girlfriend, in a girls are gross. Why would you do that sort of way? And I said yes. He asked me if I ever kiss her and I said yes, in a fun, horror movie voice manner. He was like, ew. Gross. We all had a laugh. I thought it was a fun exchange. Well, I guess the kid went home and told his mom that night and she freaked out. Demanded I be fired for teaching her child about sex and giving details of my sex life to her child. I was 13. All I said was that I kissed a girl. The camp fired me right there. I had no idea what I said was out of line. The schedule was hanging off the wall and it was magnetized. Everyone's names were little magnets. Someone knocked it off the wall and thought they put the magnets back in the right places. Naturally, I didn't show up for my shift. I was fired the next day even after it came to light what happened because I should know what my shifts were. Meh. I got fired from Sonic when I told them I was no longer going to be available for last-minute call-ins because I'd gotten a second job. My boss was not happy, because I lived the closest. So he stormed off and started screaming, "Guess this is professional, March 54's last day. I hope you're happy." I tried to clarify that I'd still be available for set shifts, I just wouldn't be on call anymore. He screamed at me to shut up. I hadn't clocked in yet, and I could sense a tantrum, so I asked if I should even bother clocking in. He threw a burger at me and told me to get the fuck out. So I did. They had a drive-through line wrapped around the building, and I was the only non-family employee on until 3. I broke my hand and got fired for asking to take a day off to go to the doctor. I never called in there once in the 5 years I worked there. Supposedly, I argued with the owner's wife about working weekends. I specifically told them I can work weekends, but cannot work anytime with less than a day's notice. I'm not at your beck and call for $8 an hour, fuck me right? I got a middle-level position at the company where they boasted at how family-orientated they are. They are the kind of company that has a small arcade and putt-putt and ping-pong table and encourage people to relax and play them. After a month of being there, I decided to play some coworkers in ping-pong since I'm pretty decent at it. The owner and his son ends up walking through the doors and sees me playing and challenges me. I play the son and absolutely demolish him. He got extremely upset and walked away after throwing the paddle at me. Later that week I was fired for not fitting the culture. Cool. I was a new hire. It was Christmas time, so the office was hosting a Christmas sweater competition. I was appointed judge because I was new and thus impartial. I received explicit consent from each employee in front of the supervisor before proceeding to judge. At least one female coworker accused me of looking at her chest while I was judging her sweatshirt. I kid you not. Fired. I got fired from a McDick's for asking too many customers how their day was going. Not because it slowed anything down. Mind you, I only did when it was slow. They put in complaints to corporate that I was being invasive. The first time I thought my manager was making a joke. Guy preparing to retire, who had been training me to take over his job for the past 7 months, felt I was ready to take over completely. Boss was afraid to lose 30+ years of experience and fired me to keep the old guy for a little longer. From what I understand, there was a pretty big fight. Old guy was a wonderful reference for me with the new job I obtained, with a $20K plus pay raise, and begrudgingly agreed to stay on for another year. I once worked for a small private school. A new supervisor was hired, and she called an after-hours meeting the Wednesday night right before Thanksgiving. One teacher didn't attend and she was fired. When the new supervisor was finally let go, I heard from the owner that they had 4 lawsuits from employees being wrongfully fired. My boss asked me to come in his office and fired me on the spot with the excellent reason of, you know why. I was pretty distressed and way too shy to protest and left with that. Learned afterwards that it was because I had a cold that day and was a bit tired. Joke on him, it's illegal to fire people on the spot in my country, and I brought some well-deserved justice on him. I got fired from Burger King because a coworker let me use his vape on my break. When I was off break, I tried giving it back but kept getting ignored. I figured I'd give it back after we close, but he left early. I went back the next day, my day off, to return it and got fired for stealing. Got fired from a public library for taking 2 carts to collect books from the outside drop box instead of 1. The past few times I emptied the drop box on a Monday it required 2 trips, so I brought 2 carts instead. It turns out the matter of how many carts were used in emptying the drop box was a matter of a library board vote, and I was in violation of a town ordinance. Mind you, I wasn't fired. I was placed on paid administrative leave pending a library board inquiry at which I was welcome to call witnesses. I couldn't keep a straight face, so I resigned. I was given my work schedule for the week. It was changed after I received it, and I didn't show up on a day I had originally been off. Manager called and said, "You've done this too many times. You're fired." I'd never so much as been late for work. I learned later that they found a way to get rid of every single person under 18. Kinda fired, I guess. Got a job offer and they wanted me to start ASAP, but told them I want to give my job at least a week's notice. Turned in a 1-week notice. Later in the day went to our scheduled breaks 5 minutes late because I was busy doing something at work that I couldn't just put down. So I came back 5 minutes late. Manager came up to me acting really mad and said I was fired for abusing breaks. I just laughed, handed him my badge and started walking to my car. He tried stopping me saying HR needed to see me to fill out paperwork. Laughed even more and got in my car and left. Took the week off to relax before starting my new job.